Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how to stay organized inside ON1 Photo RAW 2019. Specifically for this video, we're going to touch on albums and folders. And I know there's a couple different types of each inside Photo RAW, so we're going to debunk them and I'm going to show you when you should use them and what they do. So a great way to stay organized inside Photo RAW 2019 is to utilize subfolders and folders. And folders are just simply areas on your computer that you store files. So these are a great way to look for wherever you have different photos or files stored. Subfolders are areas on your computer that live within folders. And to access either of these, folders or subfolders, just simply head over to your folders pane over here. To roll down and see different subfolders, you can just click on this little arrow by your catalog folders or your local drives or your cloud storage. And now you can see all of the different subfolders within that drive. It will also show you where you're at in your folders, showing you all of the different photos that are in that actual folder. So now let's say I want to create a subfolder because not all of these different photos in here are of the Tillicum Crossing, which is the name of the folder. So if I go down here, all of these different photos right here are just of downtown Portland. They're not of the Tillicum Crossing and they're not even in the same area. So I want to separate those two folders. An easy way to do that is to simply select all of these photos, and now I want to add a subfolder. So I'll right click and I'll add subfolder. And now I can just name the subfolder what I want it to be named. Just name it Downtown Portland. I have move selected items into subfolder selected. Now I'm just going to click add. And now if I scroll to the top, all of those photos are stored inside this Downtown Portland subfolder. Furthermore, if I go over to my folders pane over here and look where we were at the beginning, you'll see it created a new subfolder inside this Tillicum Crossing folder called Downtown Portland. Now let's say I want to move that newly made subfolder into a different area on my hard drive. I can do that incredibly easy by simply clicking on it. And now I can just drag it around and I can drop it into any of these different folders or subfolders as I please. I'm just going to head up to this demo DK, which is where I have mainly all of my photos. Drop it in there. And now I have Downtown Portland in here inside this demo DK folder rather than having it inside the Tillicum Crossing. So that's an easy way that you can move different folders to different areas. Just simply click and drag and drop it into where you want it to go. Now if I go into this demo DK here, you can see that I have that Downtown Portland folder right there. I can even actually click and drag from here and do the same thing I did earlier. So those are some of the basics on how to stay organized using folders and subfolders. Remember that folders are just areas on your computer where you store files, and then subfolders are just folders within other folders. So now that we're on folders, let's talk about catalog folders. And catalog folders seem like they're kind of complex, but they're incredibly basic and they're a great way to stay organized within ON1 Photo RAW. And the difference between a folder and a catalog folder is that a catalog folder creates a media cache that contains image preview files as well as metadata so that you can look through and browse through your photos a lot faster. Also, if you do go in and you modify any of these photos within your catalog folders, let's say you modify settings or metadata, it's going to detect that and it's automatically going to update your folders based on your modifications. So let's create a catalog folder real quick, and I think that will better explain what catalog folders do. So I'm just going to create one from this Tillicum Crossing folder. And to create a catalog folder, you can either head up to this plus option here and click on it, and you can add in your folder. Or what I like to do, similar to what we did earlier, is to simply grab the folder you want. Then you can just go up and you can drag it and drop it right into the Add Catalog Folder area. A dialog is going to prompt you to confirm that you want to add a catalog folder. You can click Add. And once I add that catalog folder in there, all of these photos are going to get preview files for them that's going to be stored inside a small media cache. What that means is that whenever I open Photo RAW up and I browse through these photos of this Tillicum Crossing, they're going to pull up instantly. because there's already a small media cache full of all of the preview image files. And all of these photos are raw images. So let's click on one here. And it says it's 81.8 megabytes big. That's an incredibly large photo file. And to preview that is incredibly hard for a photo processor. But since we've added that as a catalog folder and created that media cache, watch as I go into these photos here and see how fast I can browse through them. Those are all raw photos and they're being browsed and looked at instantly. So catalog folders are a great way to keep your photos organized, and if you have lots of folders with raw images, it's an easy way to browse through without having to wait for the photo to render. Also, if you do make any modifications, let's say I took this photo into edit and I actually added some adjustments and some metadata and keywords, that would all get updated as I'm doing it inside these catalog folders, so that when I go back and view the photo, it stays updated with all those adjustments. Another great way to stay organized is to use albums. And albums are just basic photo albums that you add photos into so that you can access them at any time or if you close down the program. So if you want to create an album, simply head over to this albums pane over here and you can click on this plus button and let's just create an album for Tillicum Crossing. Now I'll just head back into that Tillicum Crossing folder. I'll select all of these photos and I'll just drag and drop them into that Tillicum Crossing album. So now let's click on this album here and you'll see we have all of those photos that we dragged and dropped into it. Now dropping photos into a photo album is different from dropping them into a different subfolder or folder. You're not actually moving any of these photos. All you're doing is adding these photos into a photo album so that if you're in a different folder, let's say you're in this Lake Tahoe folder, you can go back and you can click Tillicum Crossing, and now you have all of those photos that you added into that album. So albums are an easy way to stay organized by simply dragging and dropping photos into them, and then you can access them at later times really easily. Another way to stay organized with albums is to create a smart album. And to create a smart album, simply head over to your albums pane here, click on the plus button, and you can create a smart album. And smart albums basically search all of your catalog folders and they pull out photos based on your criteria that you define in this window here. So let's say I want this smart album to only show me photos that were taken at an aperture of f/22. What I can do is I'll type in f/22 photos for my album name, and then I'll head down to this search area here, and this is where you're going to define your criteria for what photos get pulled up into the smart album. So I know that I want an aperture of f/22, so I have aperture selected here, and I'll go down to f/22. And let's say I want to add another search term. I can do that easily by simply clicking on this plus button here, or if I want to remove it, I could simply use the minus button. So you can create as much criteria as you want. Keep in mind that it's only going to search for that exact criteria, and if it's off a little bit, it's not going to show that photo. So let's just use aperture of f/22, and let's just click OK. So now if I head over to my albums pane here, and I click on this f/22 Photos Smart Album, if I scroll up and I click on a photo and go into Info, its aperture is 22. So let's take a look at this ISO number here. It's 320, but we also have an aperture of 22. Let's say I want to edit this smart album to only look for photos that are shot at an aperture of 22, and let's say an ISO of 100. We can go back to our albums pane here, we can right click, we can click edit, and now we can modify that smart album again. So I'll just head down to our search criteria right here. I'll click this plus button. I'll go into this option and I'll select ISO. Now I can just use this menu to select 100. I'll click OK. And it removed that photo from that album because it was shot at an ISO of 350. So I'll go back into that album here. And now if I look at any of these photos, It says it's an aperture of 22 and an ISO of 100. So those are some quick ways to use albums and folders to stay organized inside ON1 Photo Raw 2019. I'm Dylan with ON1, and thanks for watching.